I don't know if you know of anybody who's called Mrs. Adiri Bigbe. We captured her from the other side. Our famous Onyinye is now Mrs. Adiri Bigbe, in case you didn't know, and it's happy to have her in our fold. And we are going to capture more. We are going to capture more of women from the East because we love them so much. Onyinye, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Uncle
Congratulations.
Jimmy. I'm very well, thank you.
Sorry I couldn't come to your wedding, but
completely understandable.
You completely understand.
Yes.
So what's it like
so
to wake up in the morning and have a man by your side?
Uncle Jimmy, this is daytime radio, but it's
no, I just said you see you just made up. I said to wake, is he a man?
Yes, he is.
You wake up, and I know you now. I knew before you got married, so I wonder what. And your honeymoon took forever. It took over almost a month.
It has not ended. Honeymoon
It's
forever.
still honeymoon.
Yes.
And you don't have any problem with having to provide food 3 times daily.
None
you must feed him.
Of course. Yes.
You must feed him.
Have you started Don't worry, when you see him, you'll know.
Have you started making some like Yoruba food, like amala, gbegiri, and all this?
Actually, not yet. We'll get there.
Who will I get to coach you? Anyway, we'll talk about
that. Of course.
Well, that's the bright side of things. The other side of things we want to talk about this morning. Congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Or is he doctor?
No,
Mr. and Mrs. or simply Mr. and Mrs. Very soon will be Chief Mr. and Chief Mrs. Okay, so that's the bright side of life. The other side of life is what we're going to talk about this morning, and that is how to handle grief. For somebody who lost a loved one not too long ago, you can imagine why this subject is coming up now. Because somehow we don't think, most of us don't handle the issue of grief well. I'll give you an example, because my guest, Gozie Udemeze, who is a grief coach, I told her what happened, what I did once. I had a young niece, who lost her son. And when I put a call through to her, like I would do first, I just said, I'm sorry about what happened. I didn't ask her that what happened. I said, I just heard what has happened. I waited to see if she would tell me. When she was able to tell me a little bit of her own volition, I now said, are you receiving visitors? She said, no, and that you are the first person to ask me that question, that my house is full of people. I've come to run upstairs to Dot. I need solitude at this time. Well, to take us through how to handle grief, both for the grieved and the sympathizers, Gozie is here. She's a lawyer. She came all the way from the East, not for this program. She came all the way from the East for a lawyers' conference, and so on and so forth. And I have it on. I didn't have it, but let me just say it with confidence that even if we don't finish today, if we don't finish this discussion today, we can always continue later on by Zoom or whatever. Sure. Even if she's in Enugu. I knew you would say that, true. Morning, Gozie. How are you?
Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
You're a grief coach. What exactly does that? What do you coach people? Is it how to score goals or what?
The duty of a thank you so much.
Go on, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
The duty of a grief coach is to work with the bereaved, to work with that person who has lost a loved one.
Yes.
I am focused, my niche is on those who lost their loved ones, but you can be a grief coach for those who lost their parents, who lost their jobs. So that
grief is grief.
Of losses, yes.
Yes.
Now, to be there for the person and to provide support. You don't tell that person what to do.
Yes.
You work with what that person wants to do and to help create and recreate coping strategies. Because when you lose someone, at times that clarity is not there. And if you don't watch it, you might grieve forever. In quote, I dragged that word grieve because when you allow the loss to becloud everything, it affects your job, it affects your relationships, it affects everything. So the duty of a grief coach is to hold your hand and walk with you.
And okay, so let's we don't want you to all your services. We can't pay your bills. So at least we'll be able to tap as much as we can from you. Let's start with the sympathizers, because I think that is very vital. How should people handle anyone who is grieving? What advice do you have? I tell you this, for example, as a rule, I don't ask what happened unless I'm told. People don't know that you can do a lot of damage. Keep repeatedly asking. Yes. I once I've shown up where there is grief, or I would have called to know if you're receiving visitors. If it's a much older person, I would understand. But if it's a younger person, yes. And you get there. Once you get there and you've shown up, the person already knows. You get what I'm saying? The person already knows why you are there. And then all this idea sometimes that when somebody is grieving, you walk in and impose yourself on them and say, let us pray. Let us pray. Sometimes the person is praying about 25 times. And when this happens, it's a reminder. So you tell me, am I being unduly sensitive, or what I've said, is it valid?
No, you are not being unduly sensitive. Okay, let me create a scenario. Assuming I hear that somebody close to me lost someone, my first reaction will not be prior to my experience and training would have been to call or to drive to the person's house. No. My first reaction will be to send a message across, even if they don't read immediately, to find out, to let the person know, I heard what happened. When is the best time to talk to you or to see you? Even if it takes them 1 week to reply, allow them. And it's not by age. You always say, oh, that person was 100. No. Allow the person. And you can also, once in a while, send a message that encourages. And then the day you visit, it's very important that you visit and sit in silence. Let the conversation be initiated by the bereaved. Because from experience, there are times you just want to sit down and just be by yourself, even in the midst of the people. There could be 20 persons here and you are just still by yourself, because there's funeral to plan. There are responsibilities as a result of that loss.
Yes.
And there are things you need to do. And most times those early days are when you begin to interrogate yourself. What did I do not right? What didn't I do right? What would I have done? In my own case, I kept saying to myself, maybe I should have stopped my husband from leaving for Abuja on a Thursday, because he never traveled to Abuja on a Thursday in more than 20 years of marriage. And so I should have, and that if I had stopped him, but I didn't stop him. That guilt, that I should have. That's when people are dealing with it. For some people, it might be, God, you failed me. How could you?
Yes.
And then you walk in and start singing about that God. It's offensive.
It's offensive.
Some will come in and say, it's God took the... somebody said to me on Facebook that God needed an angel and took my husband. And I said, your husband is also an angel. Submit him. For me, that was very rude. That was very... I didn't like that. So most times we say the wrong things. So it's better to come in and sit. Observe. And the miserable mourners that will just come in and throw themselves on the ground, crying and wailing. Few minutes after, they are asking, is there food in the house?
Yes.
How do you reconcile that?
I mean, I had to be rude to somebody during but I just walked him out that look.
Yes.
I don't
yes. I remember a family member who came in wailing, and I said to her, could you please stop? My husband's spirit is hovering over here. Because I felt him. Until date, she holds it against me. And so when we go to visit the bereaved, it's important to read their body language and know what to say. If they initiate a conversation, yes. And don't start asking them, what killed this person? In my case, I said death. Another person, I said accident. Where? Was he driving? Was it, those interrogations, they are too early. Because the bereaved will volunteer the information when they feel good about it.
Yes, about it.
Because sometimes you don't want to share it. It took me time
But
to
in
share.
your case, being that he was a husband, you would even feel under pressure if a member of his family is asking you what happened. It's as if you're on trial already.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes. And so all of those kind of questions. And then when going to a bereaved person, go with an open mind. Not when you come in there, you said, oh, she hugged Mrs. A and she didn't hug me. You don't know why she gave Mrs. A that hug and why she didn't hug you. It might not be anything you're holding against you. Allow the person, and then don't walk in there to say, she was wearing trousers. She was wearing. Allow them to be by themselves.
Let me give you an example. I have a late aunt now, God bless her soul. When she lost her husband, she brought work home the next day, and there was an opera, and everybody was saying, why would she be walking? Why would she brought a work home the next day? In my case, when it happened to me, what I did was I went to work on not the next day but the day after. I had to bury myself in work, and people were surprised. And then you start hearing things like, you are so strong,
and you are not grieving,
and you are not grieving. I'm not going to make myself a spectacle because my brother died. People also have that, they put themselves under that pressure that they must show that they're grieving. It doesn't have to happen.
I wanted to talk about that because, especially in my culture, in Igbo culture, when you lose your husband and you don't show that you're grieving, it's offensive to some people, especially in families that don't understand. Because for me, like I tell widows, crying and rolling on the floor is useless. There are bills to be paid. There are responsibilities, and you keep crying. The day my daughter had her matriculation, or was it graduation, convocation at UNN, I had my sunglasses on all the time, and I was crying. I had tears dropping from my eyes because the father would have been there. He wanted a daughter who is an engineer, and she graduated as an engineer. Electronics or something, and he wasn't there. So there's always a reason to grieve. Why do you want a bereaved person to cry in one week? To prove to you there is, and a lot of people are doing it. You see them looking tattered so that they won't look like they are rejoicing, so that they won't look like they are happy. The African culture puts a lot of pressure on the bereaved.
Let's even look at our culture, where you come from. I think women have to wear black.
Now it's white because they have ruled out.
They've ruled out black.
And in some churches, now the churches have taken over almost.
Some
churches, you don't need to wear anything.
Yeah.
You just your normal attire. You don't have to wear all of that. And you know the funny thing, they'll ask you to burn all those clothes. I remember when my husband died, after his burial, I left for the US. And then I shopped for white dresses and pants and beautiful things from Macy's, from JCPenney, from Dillard's. And when they were talking about burning, I said, excuse me.
I ain't burning this one. It ain't gonna happen.
But the ones I wore on the day of the funeral,
yes,
I discarded them. The good ones, I gave out to other widows. So the bereaved finds his or herself under a lot of pressure to prove to him or herself that he or she is grieving, to prove to the society. And then the church is not helping matters with the bereaved because they put a lot of levies on the bereaved. Oh, yes, they do. I don't know about here in Lagos, but where I come from, they do. The church in the villages. When my husband died, they gave me a bill of 150,000.
What for?
The church, they said,
really?
They also billed me something that would have been paid when I die, but they billed me as a corpse. So I paid. So a lot of pressure is on the bereaved. We can treat them better.
How do you relate that with the what doctrine of Christianity?
Well, they say, is it tithe and all those kind of levies.
Yes.
But it could be done in a better manner that will not hurt the grieving. It can be done in a better manner. So I am happy we're having this conversation because we judge the bereaved, those who have suffered loss. When somebody loses a job, when you visit the person, you don't have to say, what did you do?
Exactly.
It must not be what they did. It must not be what they did. Empathize with the person, sympathize. Let the person know that that you feel for them.
How do you handle the grief of a woman whose husband has followed another woman?
Oh, that's a huge loss.
That's a loss.
It's a loss.
Yeah, because he's seen it.
He's seen the man.
How do you handle the woman? I don't know.
I
because if it's the man, If it's the man when they're taking wife, that thing can pay.
But for the woman, women find it more difficult to move forward. I don't believe in moving on because you really don't ever move on from anything. Now, for the woman, I've had such cases where they couldn't believe that the man I suffered with, the man I did this with, but he's made his choice. So choose yourself. Choose yourself. And it's easy to say and difficult, but it's doable. It's doable. Because if you keep running after the man, he will start having bloated ego.
Okay, the people who are now going to sympathize with the woman, what should they do?
They don't sympathize, they mock them. You know, those kind of mockery wrapped in sympathy.
Well, and so for some of them, it's a golden opportunity.
But they should also not blame the woman.
To put a leg in the door.
Exactly. And they should also not blame the woman to say to the woman, maybe you are not dressing well. Because men whose wives dress well and wear, is it bone straight that they call it? Those kind of men, they sleep with their mates that don't wear bone straight. So it's not always about, oh, you did this, you did that. You can even have a conversation with the person, but timing is very important when dealing with somebody who is who has suffered loss. Imagine going to a man who lost a toddler. And you're asking the man, didn't you know this child was running temperature?
Yeah,
what type of an irresponsible father are you? He's not irresponsible. Maybe it was his first time being with a toddler. He's not a doctor, even if he was. And maybe he didn't know. Maybe he's done his best. It's always good to give people that benefit of doubt. We don't give that to the bereaved.
Another one that occurs, which also occurred to me, is when somebody dies and then you start blaming the doctors. Oh, what kind of doctors were they? They should have done this. And that sets you thinking. You know, I think, like you said, to go back what you stressed, silence is golden at such times. And let the person who is grieving, let him or her initiate. Okay, it's the Discourse with Jimi Disu, brought to you by MTN. Our numbers are 0201 2770993, and the female line is 0201 465 7190. We'll start taking calls now. Now, let's try, and I know a lot of people who want to call in, so let's try and be just mention your name and go straight to your comment or whatever. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, yes. Speak up, please. I can hardly hear you.
Manuel from Ikodo.
Yes, please go on, Mr. Manuel.
You asking you, I got to just greet you guys.
Okay. You called to greet us. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much. He called to greet you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. How to grieve the loss of a loved one.
How to grieve,
I thought you wanted us to talk about
Yes, go on. Yes.
How to grieve the loss of a loved one. Now, if you lost a family member, I want you to, or a friend or anyone, I want you to know that you shouldn't lose yourself.
Yes.
It's very important.
You don't want another corpse around.
Yes. So I want to just share some nuggets on that.
Okay.
It's important that you express your feelings. Tell others how you feel, how that loss makes you feel. And don't pretend about it. You know, don't act to be strong. In my culture, we tell men, oh, don't cry, you are a man. I don't know if it's done, but I know that they tell you, don't cry, you are a man. Men do cry. I'm a grief coach. I have male clients who, at times, my entry point with them is to ask them to identify someone who they need to cry to, who sees them as somebody that shouldn't cry. And most times it's their mom. And so I give them an assignment to go to visit your mom and tell your mom how you feel and break down. It's always a...
But part of the problem is that you would be thinking you don't want the mom to break down too.
No, but when is a sick mother, the circumstances are different. And it mustn't be the mom. It could be the brother. It could be the father. But there has to be somebody. It could be your friend. There has to be someone who you have to cry to. It's important. Then secondly, take care of your health. It's very important. When people are grieving a loss, they forget themselves. Yeah. You don't check your blood pressure. You don't check your sugar level. You don't even know where your glucometer is. You don't rest. And you see this idea of when somebody loses someone, you get up in the morning and go to their house and sit from morning till night. We need to stop it because they need time to themselves.
Some even moving.
Oh, some moving. I had two women who moved into my house.
And you
before
were
I
feeding
wake up-
them?
Before, feeding them, doing everything. Family members, though. Before I wake up, they have had breakfast everywhere, and invading your space,
Your space,
bringing in
yes.
their own friends. Eat well. I know you won't have appetite, but what do you want? There must be something you want to eat. It's important because after that loss, a lot of our widows have high problem from all those crying, all manner of stuff. Now embrace life. That's one thing I've done. When you can't meet me and identify me as a widow, never. Because on my Facebook wall is all fun. I have my low moments, but I'm not going to get drowned in, because I've suffered a lot of loss. I lost my mother at the age of 8. I lost my foster grandmother who started taking care of me at the age of 21. And then a day before she died, I lost my best friend. I didn't know until I got to the village and found out. And then I lost a woman in this Lagos who was a sister and everything to me and was charting my career path for me. She went to bed, she didn't wake up. Ila, Ikenze Hallman. She died. That loss is still paining me. And less than a year and 6 months after, my husband died. And then I lost a dear friend of mine, Chinelo, 2 or 3 years ago. And then my father and my sister died and my father died. So I've seen grief and I know it. But in between grieving, find time to celebrate. Find time to, do what you like. There's a place in Lagos they call Lagosia. Find time to go there and eat. Find something to do. Suya
What kind of food
sport.
do they sell there?
Pepper soup, eh? If you eat their pepper soup, I'm going there next week. My children took me there. So my children know that when I'm in Lagos, don't bother me.
Your children must take me too.
We must take you. And so delay on major decisions. Some people want to remarry. You want to adopt a child to replace that dead child. And then you bleed on the child you've adopted. You want to make new friends to replace the friends who died. You want to quickly do things to replace. Take time to adjust.
Okay, we're going to take a short break now. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to continue this interesting discussion with Gozie. And like I said, I know you'll have loads and loads of questions. Not to worry. Maybe in another month or so, we'll be, even if she's not in Lagos, we'll be able to do it by Zoom. It's the Discourse with Jimi Disu, brought to you by MTN. We'll take a short break and then we'll be right back.
The Discourse with Jimi Disu
The Discourse with Jimi Disu
continues in a moment.
.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info.
No, don't sit like this. People should,
Let's pray.
No, let's pray. That one.
And
that
they
one.
start singing
Yes.
and clapping. And shouting.
Yeah, and
that
shouting.
kind of wailing prayer. When you want silence, when you don't want any noise.
I spent about an hour and a half with a grieving person, and about 4 or 5 times people kept coming in, and without even asking questions, just let us pray, And I thought that, talking a bit about prayer, I thought that prayer is supposed to be really and truly a private affair. But again, the sense of entitlement of our people, they impose their whatever. And then talking about the the religious aspect. Would you, for example, sometimes say, okay, call the priest, call the this, call the that, in terms of breaking news of the loss of a loved one? Who is the best person to call at times like this?
If you are close to your priest, yes. If you have very close friends, yes. And the mode of breaking that news is very important. It's very important. Mine was broken over the phone at about 2:30 a.m. that morning. Somebody called me from Abuja and said, "Oh, this is to tell you that your husband had been killed by a drunk driver." And it felt like a joke. If a priest is very close, there are people who have close relationships with their priest. It could be a neighbor, but it has to be somebody who it is not good to release that information. For somebody who is hypertensive, he could get, out of hand.
But here lies the dilemma. A family member got killed, and we wanted to break the news to somebody close to me. And so we called in a pastor. Somebody who, out of the blues, you just call her and say, meet us at so and so's place. You get there, you say, let us pray. You talk about Thessalonians, you talk about Ecclesiastes, so that the person was already tense. And the poor lady told me later that if it wasn't the fact that her two parents, me being one of them, was there, but she was so curious. I was the one who broke the ice. I was too tense. I got tired.
So maybe to prepare her mind, because Ecclesiastes talks about time to live, time to die.
No, you've already created tension. On that, it's not a day for me to remember, but on that day, I just said, look, Pastor, please, let's leave this thing. Because the girl herself was already traumatized.
No, but in that case, they needed to prepare her mind.
Prepare her mind what? In preparing the mind, her mind was, she said she was to tell me later that if it wasn't the fact that both her parents were there.
And now, updates on the sports news.
Fresh as it breaks on 99.3 Nigeria.
So sorry about that. She said if it wasn't the fact that both her parents were there,
she would have thought that she lost.
She kept wondering what it was, because it was quite clear that something was wrong. So what way would you recommend? Because sometimes in preparing the person,
you get them more tense. So there's a place of, that's what I talked about, timing in grief is very important. Yes, you can say that. Like, I remember
it's a tough one, though.
Yes, how my father was 90 when I lost my husband.
Yes.
How he broke the news to my children. My son, there was a time my son brushed it. So it wasn't too prolonged, but they said they knew something had happened.
They would know now.
So they were wondering who. And that's a tough moment.
Very tough moment.
Tough moment, because you don't want to lose anybody. And at times, like when my sister died, I got a phone call from an older sister who said, something happened though. So my mind went to my dad, who was 100, and he said, she mentioned my sister, said, God. So she didn't prolong it.
Yes.
She prepared my mind and she dropped the news. And I kept quiet. She said, are you there? I said, yes. I said, can I get off the phone? She said, yes. And I dropped. But at times, we overdo things. You call some pastors, they will pray. Pray. And the person is jittery. The person is wondering what. It mustn't be a pastor that have, let me point out something without any prejudice. That somebody is ordained a priest doesn't make them counselors.
Yes.
If they don't have the training,
yes,
there are roles.
Everybody's beginning to realize that now.
Yes. Just like a pastor giving counseling in marriage, when they are not trained to do it, they could cause damage. So in grief, if you are not trained and experienced to handle it, it's important to stay away because you can cause more damage. So
which one?
I prefer to do it within 5 minutes. Don't prolong it for me and be preaching how this person.
Let me be honest with you. The way I believe people might be wired is the moment you see A coming to your place and B follows, I would be asking what has happened.
What has happened?
Tell me what has happened. I'd rather you give it to me straight up than.
But the circumstances are not the same. There are people you will give straight up and they collapse. It depends on who.
So you got to be careful.
We have to be careful. So it's something that is specific to the individual. We can't use one size to fit all.
So what would you be advising us now? How to go about
that's
it?
the advice.
Remember that this death sometimes you're not even prepared for it.
No, nobody is prepared for anything.
It just comes like that, and then you don't know how.
And for some people, they are even there and they see that death. They watch that loved one die. So they might be the ones who will not break the news to other loved ones. And for some people, they will say, "Oh, we've lost her," just like that. Not because they want to hurt you, but they need to get it out.
They need to get it out, yeah.
And and so that other people, because when you are grieving alone, it can be heavy. When you are grieving alone, like you are with Mr. B, and Mr. B dies, and you have C, D, E, F, G, H, who needs to know or who need to know, and they don't know, and you're just carrying it alone. It's important to let them know, but in letting them know, it mustn't be the same way. Because there are people you would tell and they have health issues. There are people who will even predict. Some people might have dreamt about it. And so when you are telling them, they say, "Oh, I already know."
I know.
So it depends on the individual.
Let me tell you, the one that I find difficult to bear, I had a senior friend who lost his son, and he had to go through the motions of being at home all day for about 1 week, people coming to sympathize with him. And that's what bothered him the most.
He should have told them to stop coming.
It felt like, again, people might think that is rude. They kept coming in droves. It didn't help that he was a politician. And his house was filled up with people and shoes on one. The sight of shoes alone. Like I told you, in Yoruba, there's a prayer about shoes. Where you see all kinds of shoes and slippers and everything. Because
that's a bad sign.
It's a bad sign, But I have some persistent caller here. Hello, good morning. Hello, morning.
Good morning.
You finally got through. Yes, good morning. Who is speaking?
Simon, calling from Ogun State.
Morning, Mr. Simon. Please go on quickly.
Yes, I want to ask you for personal grieving moments. My mom, she lost her fight. So ever since that time, anytime very difficult for me. She can see partially, but what I'm trying to say is that I went to see the doctor personally. So behind closed doors, the doctor told me that the situation is somehow irredeemable. But she continued, this prayer now, what God cannot do does not exist. So every morning. How do we grieve that moment? How do we give her hope? And of course, we have not been able to tell her openly. But she continued, when you listen to her privately, she continued to have this hope. That,
okay. So let me help. Thank you very much, sir. Let me help rephrase what you were saying. Sometimes you find that somebody is dead and they say, "Don't tell Mama, she mustn't hear." And I'm very much against that, because these days it takes just 5 minutes.
For the news to
spread. What do you think about certain things? When you say, this is too much for somebody to bear, don't tell them.
No, they should be told, because the worst is finding out on social media, or somebody even calling you to tell you. One of my children was somebody that called her and said, "Oh, sorry about your dad." Meanwhile, I was still trying to figure out how to tell her. So when she called me, I said to her, that's her, I said to her, "Don't worry, he had an accident, blah, blah, blah." And she said, "Mommy, I know what happened. I don't know how you are this strong." And that broke me. Because I would have preferred to be able to embrace her and break the news because of, their relationship and all of that. But a neighbor's child called her to so it's important, let the people that are vital or important to have that information.
Let them know very quickly.
Let them know very quickly, so that they deal with it as they deem fit.
I mean, there was a case of a parent who didn't know that his daughter had died and saw it on the social media.
It happens a lot these days.
Yes. Because as soon as the accident happened,
Somebody posted.
The friends started tweeting tributes and things like that. And whilst they were still trying to find a way to tell the dad and whatever, the thing was already on social media, and people turned up in his house.
And then this social media, pattern of breaking the news before the family members, it has to stop. The way people rush to social media with the picture, and they dig out pictures they've taken with that person in 1942 and dig out and write tributes. Allow the family to make that post, because there are family members in, the world is a global village. They might be all over the world and they're on social media. Imagine finding out. I know a widow in Aba who found out on social media about an accident, her husband and her daughter. She saw their body, on social media.
Wow.
So the best thing to do is not to go on that accident spot, take picture and post on social media. It's to offer them first aid, is to offer them help, and to let family members know.
Okay, let Onyinye read one or two WhatsApp messages I've had. That Eve Pharmacy, yes, try that one, yes.
Okay, this one says, "Good morning, Uncle JD and your guest. Thanks for today's topic." Says this is from Mrs. Oboli IKD. She says her best friend lost her husband, and the elder brother told her to go to church the following week, and she vehemently refused. That's Mrs. Oboli vehemently refused. She says, guess what? The so-called brother got divorced that same week and has never stepped into church since then till date. The hypocrisy alarms me, she says. Why didn't he also go to church to sit it out? Another message says, this texter lost his wife last year, and he said at some point the living room turned to a church. Someone in the prayer group had the nerve to suggest he remarry less than a week after his wife's death. She hadn't even been buried. He says he ignored the numerous suggestions and did what he wanted with his life. Then this one says, good morning in the studio. Says came from a broken home where they didn't really know why parents separated, but mom says he's a bad man, and they all stayed off, but later discovered that the father was not really as bad as their mother. She says, but she grieved since her dad died because she would have treated him better and gotten to know him. Some people should stop blacklisting their spouse because it didn't work out between them. That's another message.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
Okay. Someone says, when grieving, do you tell people not to visit? A question.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
That I'm not.
You can.
Yeah.
When I lost my dad last December, I put it up on my wall that I don't want guests.
Yes.
That I want to grieve, but I put it up politely. And it depends on your personality. If you have people who know what you can do. I was telling you, I didn't have any guests, apart from two widows who came in as bringing gifts. They didn't come in to condole me. And so it's important that you tell people politely. If you belong to a WhatsApp group, send a polite message that you want to be by yourself. And that because those visitors could be something else. Some will even come in with their own food, with their own snacks, when you have no appetite. Some will come in there and prophesy and tell you that enough is enough, that death will not happen again. Meanwhile, another person is sick, in the hospital, with stage 5 or stage 6 cancer, about to die, and then that person dies, and it will be that they didn't all manner of crappy stuff. And then they bring in a lot of religious things to suppress grief. Why will you tell somebody who lost her husband to go to church the following week? It's not in the place of that man to tell her what to do. It's not in her place, because let me tell you, loss comes with shame. It comes with this feeling of not being enough.
Yeah, inadequacy.
And so what? Maybe just like me, I like to pray, and then I pray for somebody to die, not to die. The person died. If I don't know my God very well, I won't want to appear before all those people I've been doing gingering that we could pray. It happens to some people, so you want to withdraw. You want to deal with, and this sorry, it can make you cry more than the loss. If you pass 50 people, 49 will tell you sorry. How did it happen? Are you blah, 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 blah. When is the funeral? And they want to impose a shebi on you. The person might not want a shebi. When my father died, I didn't want anybody to attend the burial. I didn't want any of my guests.
You'd have had a private burial.
Yes, I wanted
You'd have wanted to have a private.
But at the end of the day, my eldest brother told me that I had 85% of the guests. And you know what that means in expenses? In feeding them, in providing their gift packs and all of that. I would have preferred the way I traveled for my sister's funeral. I traveled with one of my daughters. We hired a Sienna, That sienna was like our room and parlor all through the funeral. At night, we go in and sleep. During the day, we are just, no, I didn't have anybody bothering me. No group was asking me for their food. And I had my black dress, covered my hair, dark sunglasses. Nobody bothered me. But my father's own, Gozie, I have not eaten. Gozie, I have not done that. Oh, you have to go, in-laws will have to dance and, a lot of that. We need to ask the bereaved, how do you want to grieve? When somebody loses a job, the person might not want to apply immediately. Stop pushing applications and job opportunities.
To the person, yeah.
If they didn't ask
It all
for it.
boils down to there's a disease that we have across the board, across Nigeria itself, diverse as we are, and that's a sense of entitlement.
Entitlement, yes.
Where you think that even with your children, you must know that you live in a different world and you must be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing, the most important mantra is MYOB, mind your own business.
That's it.
Okay?
That's it.
Let's pick another. Hello, good morning.
Mr. Disu.
Morning, sir.
Odogu 1.
Yeah, 1 and 2, please. I cannot be just one Odogu, I'm 2 in 1.
Good and fine. Okay. Rapruchu is my name.
Yes.
Well, I greet your guest.
Yes.
Because I sympathize with
Dalo, thank you.
losses, and especially your husband.
Yeah.
Well, I want your take on this set of people. When their family member is maybe battling with one health challenges or the other,
Mm-hmm.
they don't contribute a set. But immediately they hear the person is dead, they go on and there, bringing millions. I mean, are they mourning? Are they really mourning, or are they rejoicing? I want to know.
Well, I can see that Gozo will answer, but let me quickly give my own. Again, apart from the sense of it's also a sense of entitlement that we have. We do too many things for show than for reality, and that's the way I feel. Because I usually ask, when you hear a befitting burial, did the person live a befitting life? Even with parents, some of our people, even with their parents, you neglect them when they are dead. When they are alive, when they are now dead, you say, no, we must give Papa or Mama a befitting burial. We must do this and do that. I wonder what you think, Goze.
Yes, my thoughts are in alignment with yours. Why bring the money when the person is dead?
He's dead.
So it's for their personal interest to show off. And it's true, because there are families where an elderly parent will live in a dilapidated building. And when he dies or she dies, they will keep the parent in the mortuary
and renovate the building.
And start renovating. I don't understand that. Let that parent enjoy. I don't believe in befitting burial. Whatever we do as those alive, we do for ourselves. The dead is gone. They are gone. We only owe them to put them in there. That's it.
Like the reggae song says, let the dead bury the dead, and who is to be fed to be fed. Can we look at this Tyonas? What does it say? This Tyonas
This says Uncle Jimi Disu. Some funny pastor came to my house when I lost my younger sister to eclampsia in pregnancy, saying some gibberish that his father was involved in money ritual, hence the death of his sister. He said this because his sister died a year after their mom. He threatened that someone else is going to die if they don't come to his church. He says, guess what? He died 3 days afterwards. They're still doing fine. That's he and his family now are still doing fine. No one has died. His father never got involved in any ritual. And he says religious people are funny.
It's true. Because in Nigeria, nobody dies naturally. Somebody must have killed, especially men. Men don't die naturally. It's their wives. Their wives. So, and you see religion, I'm not talking about spirituality. You see, religion has done a lot of damage.
Yes.
People who are hungry, who don't have skills to do any job, they tell you that God has called them. And then they call themselves and they set up all manner of shanty things and they begin to give out prophecies. How can you go and tell someone They have scattered a lot of families by telling this person that this person is a ritualist, is a cultist, and so this, that, and they always know the reason why somebody died. They always know the reason. How could somebody do such a thing? People, you see the problem when somebody is diabetic and is not taking care of herself, for instance, and the person starts developing kidney issues, needs dialysis, all the swelling, everything. They haven't followed the process of that person's degeneration. And then they will say it's juju, because everything is juju. And then on the day of the burial, they might decide that somebody has to swear an oath. And then they make somebody go through hell.
Do they still drink the water used in washing the cups?
Anyone do
Does that happen
recently.
these days?
It used to, but when I was a child, it happened in my village, like 6 houses down the road from my father's house. That day I remember. And then when I started working with a non-profit in Enugu, we had a case of that nature. That was 2001, 2002. But lately, I haven't heard, I haven't seen. But we accuse people a lot of killing. And if you're a pastor, genuinely or whatever, even if God reveals such a thing to you, that's not how to break it to the people concerned. You can do it in a more mature manner.
Generally, all these things are suspect, if you ask me. Generally. There might be exceptions to the rule.
There might be exceptions,
but generally,
those exceptions, they handle it better. They will never do it in such a way that
if the Spirit of God is in you, it will also guide you.
Yes.
It will also guide you. There's a portion in the Bible that says that when you speak in tongues, you should have an interpreter.
Yes.
Lest to be seen as somebody who doesn't know what he or she is doing. We have so many calls because you've broken our telephone distance. We are going to send you a bill to repair. Let me say, hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, my name is Brother Tony Ozos, UC Keja.
Yes, sir.
This is a very interesting topic.
Yes, sir.
It reminds me of a church member whose daughter died, and people were trying to shield him from hearing the information.
Yes.
Only for a careless relation to break the news to the man, and the man was represented. The man immediately collapsed and passed on.
You see?
Wow.
Yes, so they have two corpses on their hand. So I think this method of breaking it is important so that people will not...
and I also think, sir, it should be immediate, very quickly, because these days, very quickly. Thank you very much, sir. In my case, before I could put my brother in the mortuary, I got 4 calls.
Oh.
Yes.
How did they know?
He died in the hospital. We took him from the hospital to the mortuary. Before I got to the mortuary, I already got him 4 calls.
How did they get to know?
I don't know.
Yes,
in Yoruba, before we even put him there, we got 4 calls. So it's good to be immediate. I won't let you go without... I will let you run a small commercial. MTN won't mind anyway. They sponsor the program. What are the services that you offer?
Okay,
you can't state your number or anything.
No, I won't.
Not for my hand.
No, I won't.
But at least you're on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook.
So your name on Facebook is?
My name on Facebook is Chigozie Christiana Udemezwe.
It's too long now. Choose one.
With Facebook, you have to have the blue tick, to do all of that.
Okay.
Monetization.
So just once you type Udemezwe, the name will come out.
Yes, Chigozie Christiana in a lawyer's attire.
Very good.
And I run Revolution Grief Coaching Service.
No, you won't want to say that one. You want to get me to trouble.
Sorry.
But
I delete it.
Okay, you. I like that one. But essentially, so what do you do for people like that? You say you tell them how to handle it.
Yes, I have group package.
Yes.
Virtual or in person.
Yes.
Different packages. I have the individual, the personalized, that will tailor to the needs of the person who is grieving.
So for how long does that last?
Maximum 6 weeks.
So
depends on the first thing I do is to have an entry point, have a conversation with the person. That tells me where they are. In 2020, I had a conversation with a woman who had lost her husband 11 years by then. And she was still at the, early stages because she hadn't been able, so it depends on the person. But we run group coaching sessions for bereaved persons.
So apart from being a lawyer, what training do you have? Are you certified?
I'm certified, yes.
Oh, you have a certificate in what now?
I am a certified grief coach.
Yes.
I am a certified life purpose coach.
Which one is life purpose again now?
Now, every life has a purpose.
Yes.
How do you identify it? And so it's connected with grief because grief might make you lose your purpose, lose sight of your assignment.
Okay.
And so there's a linkage, yes.
All right. You've known me for a while. Do I have a life purpose?
Oh, yes, you do.
You won't know now. She does.
I've read up.
Okay, one more time, I'd like to congratulate Mrs. Aderi Bigbe. You will no longer hear her. When you introduced yourself this morning on radio, what's on name? Let me see if I can find you here now.
No, I said Aderi Bigbe.
Are you sure? You are sure they knew what
evidence on YouTube.
If I hear something, if I hear that name again, we bought you
changed,
log, stock, and barrel.
God.
That's where we landed for today. It's been nice talking to Gozie Udemeze, and I think at least at the very least we've set you thinking. If you just type Udemeze in your Facebook or even in Google, and it will show up, and she'll be there for you. That's where we're going to end it for today. I can't wait to get back home and get myself ready to watch very good soccer. The Premier League is back. That is what keeps me alive and running. So enjoy yourselves. I'll be back, God willing, Tuesday, 7 o'clock. Is it 7 or 7:30? 7:30 with Mr. Sheriff Godry. Don't forget that school's debate that we have. What's it called now? The children's debate. I beg to differ. Follow it. And please, if you have they could do with some sponsorship. Don't just sponsor people betting and all these things. Let us encourage these children. And you can sponsor in many ways. You can bring prizes, airlines, bring tickets for the children to go abroad. Do something, please. Let's encourage our children. They are the leaders of tomorrow. We will not be here forever. When we are gone, we'll need them, at least if anything, to look over our grave sites. That's where we're going to end it today. I'll see you all on one and Gozie. I wish you all the best and a safe trip back home at the end of your conference. So I'll see you all next week, Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.
.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.